sites that I have put up here, you will understand some more about this. I finally found the foundational doctrines of Christian Reconstructionism, which I'd been looking for, and they're in one of these two areas. And it's very interesting to take a look there. We'll talking more about the Christian Reconstructionism when we get in to see what's happening with our government today. And here's one that I am not sure too many people are aware of because it is a very ultra-secretive right-wing organization. It's called the Council for National Policy. And I would really like to go in and tell you some more about it, but let me just say this. It plans the strategy of the religious right in America. From it springs everything else. Now, if I have not brought you anything else today, if you will look at the bottom sheet here and where the red star is, that and go Google that or use your search engine. Mine is Internet Explorer, and look this up. You will find the who's who of the Christian political and religious right. I was going to copy them and bring them to you, but just the one from A to G is 19 pages long.
No, thank you.
But it gives their biographies, not who their mommy and daddy was, but their work within this organization and others, because all of these people are members of other organizations in the far religious right and political right movement. And it is astounding. Go spend one night just scrolling through these names, and it will blow your socks off.
Oh, dear.
This organization is, I just have to tell you, it was started by Nelson Bunker Hunt, his brother, and T. Cullen Davis, a cadre of nice Texans.
Now, this is the Hunt fortune we're talking about.
Yes. And it was. I'll have to leave it there because we have so much else to talk about. And but please go read about these people. Everything you've ever wanted to know about the far religious right players is there.
Well, one of the reasons I'm so proud of the previous interview we did is that it's extremely scary. And I consider this show to be my Halloween show. So let's get into it.
All right, let's go. I want to first give you the radical right's vision for America and the world. This is their world view. And I had sent you a little...
yes, I have it here.
You have it there? Would you like to read it now?
No, we haven't. We got to condense things for this.
We've got to condense. All right. It's from C.S. Lewis, and it says something to the effect that if you are making the world your end and you are using faith as the means, you have got your man, and it doesn't make any difference what kind of a world he was looking for. You've got him, and you can use him to get to your world end. I want you to think about something here. What we're going to be talking about is the Second Protestant Revolution. Mm-hmm. This is essentially a Protestant movement. We have about half the Catholics, I think, judging by the voting of the last election, who are being manipulated by this group and who do not realize that they will be eventually separated and eliminated.
I have seen the material on Catholics from these people on the website, and the Pope in many places is considered the Antichrist.
Well, they call them idol worshippers.
Yeah.
I've seen this, and so just please keep that in mind. And they do talk a lot about Judeo-Christian this or that and the other, but the Jews too are going to be separated and eliminated eventually, unless they can do something that a few years ago, I believe the man's name is Hart. Isn't he the one that does the BC cartoon?
Yeah, Johnny Hart.
Johnny Hart, okay. He drew in his first frame a menorah. And as the frames progressed across the cartoon, the menorah morphed into the Christian cross. And this is what they are working for. One of Mr. Rushdoony of the Christian Reconstructionists, he's the father of the Christian Reconstructionists, says that we must preach Christianity to the Jews until all vestiges of Judaism is eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like for you to consider that this really, to remember, this is a Protestant revolution. And how they've managed to convince these other groups to go along with them is, I don't understand.
Well, it's not even entirely Protestant, because it has to be their Protestantism.
Oh, very definitely.
Methodists, Lutherans, Presbyterians, they're clean out.
Well, we're going to come to that in just a minute. All right, so here is the Christian Reconstructionists. They believe that all theories and practices of the human endeavor have to agree with the Old Testament biblical laws. And if they do not agree, they will be dismantled and reconstructed, hence their name, as Reconstructionists. They believe their moral choices and their biblical interpretations should take dominion in all areas of the world and in all societies throughout the world. This is a world view. And the first thing they are going to talk about, I'm going to talk about their situation. This was in the newspaper a couple of years ago, and it says the Bush administration's seemingly cavalier disregard of state and local governments isn't accidental. That it's based on an ideology that says virtually all governments, except perhaps for defense, is dysfunctional. That squeezing government size and forcing more function into the private sector is the way to go. And so this idea of a smaller government is a core belief in this group. This is the way they get rid of the New Deal organizations that have come from the New Deal legislation and everything that, you know, that have helped us.
Well, they're also going to get rid of the public school system.
That's positively.
And send it back to the way it was at the foundation of the country, when it was the church that did the schooling.
You're right on. You're reading my notes here. Actually, the homeschooling movement, the father of the homeschooling movement is J.R. Rushdoony.
Oh, my.
Yes, did you not know that? But first of all, let me tell you, just hit you with this one, a theocracy will supplant our democracy.
A theocracy is going to replace, this means government by priests, ministers, that sort of thing.
Well, we already have right now, according to some people, a God-appointed president. So, you know, you hear that quite often from this group, and that God has placed him in the White House.
Well, that doesn't sound very American to me. I mean, these people are supposed to be American Christians. They're not like Iraqis or Iranian mullahs or something.
Well, I think they only envy, some of them only envy those people. But let me tell you something. You know, when you talk about this theocracy that's going to supplant our democracy, why aren't people upset about it? Why don't they call it treason? You know, who is it that said that religion is the opium of the masses?
That happens to be Karl Marx. Either that or Lenin.
Yes, okay. But how right he was. And I think these people are so enjoying their opium so much that they are refusing to look at things as they really are. We're in an unnecessary war, and we were lied to get there, yet they don't call it a lie, and they call it this war is something that's, you know, they're supporting it. It's something that needs to be, so we don't have to fight them over here.
Well, the quote is, treason never prosper, for if treason prosper, none dare call it treason.
Right. Well, see, that's where we are, I think, at this particular point. So a theocracy will supplant our democracy. Now, when you think about that, what's got to go in order for this to be a theocracy instead of a democracy?
Well, all the elected stuff, and the Constitution's got to drop dead.
You're exactly right. Mr. Gary North, who is the son-in-law of R.J. Rushdoony,
And famous for Y2K stuff.
Yes, he was an alarmist in that. He says the public must begin to accept the judicial binding case laws of the Old Testament before we attempt to tear down judicial institutions that still rely on natural law or public virtue. I have in mind the U.S. Constitution.
Oh, wow.
So why are they going after it so hard right now?
Well, again, these people are supposed to be American Christians. They're not supposed to be Taliban or members of Al-Qaeda.
Well, let's tell them. Let's tell them. All right. Something else that needs to go are a lot of civil institutions like the labor unions, civil rights laws, and our public schools, and other civil institutions need to be eliminated.
This sounds like a Christian Sharia.
The church will be responsible for health, education, and welfare. And we'll get into how this is already happening. I'm sure some of your audience already understands where this is a reality now. Women will be relegated to their homes and to home schools. They will be banned from government, and only in some cases will they be allowed to work, if it's necessary.
Does Phyllis Schlafly know this?
I don't know.
Does Ann Coulter know this?
I don't know. I don't want to ask them either. There will be a minimal national government that functions only for defense of the nation by the armed forces. Just exactly what Mr. Pierce was writing about here, that this is a philosophy that is in the Bush administration. And if this is not in the realm of theory, this stuff has begun to permeate through our society. And what tickles the Reconstructionists is that their ideas have been picked up by mainstream, both political and religious groups, and they say, and they don't even know where it comes from. I've looked at our ideas are out there, and this person doesn't even know who a Reconstructionist is.
Yeah.
All right. Another thing that will happen is we will have rampant capitalism. Ho, ho. What is happening in America today? We'll have it through deregulation of corporate businesses, a super industrial military complex that will enrich the true believers and help this church take dominion in the world.
That's kind of like a Hitlerian organization with Speer and so forth.
Only males from biblically correct churches, what you were mentioning a while ago, will be qualified to vote or hold office. Now, this is a British English separatist notion, of our Puritans notion, that only you could be a Puritan, but if you were not one of the elect, you couldn't vote, you couldn't hold office. So it's like some of us are equal, but some of us are more equal. All of us are equal, but some are more equal. Some of us are more Christian.
That's Animal Farm.
Yeah, right.
All animals are created equal, and then they added some animals are more equal than others.
Yes. All right, and insufficiently Christian men will be denied citizenship and perhaps executed. We were talking about what the Massachusetts Bay Colony had done.
Yeah.
The Quakers who were insufficiently Christian, as far as they were concerned, were hung. Others were run out of the colony. So it's happened in America before.
Yes, it has. And there have been Catholic riots in America, too. Anti-Catholic riots.
Exactly.
All during the 19th century. Carol, these people are not Americans. And they're certainly not patriots. They're just not.
No, but they don't see it that way. They're supercharged. They think they're supercharged patriots. They really do. I don't understand it. These people are very smart that are the leaders in this group. But they could never have gotten anywhere if the general population had not voted them in or gone along with their ideas. And a neighbor of mine, I was trying to talk to her before the last election, or before the 2000 election. And her remarks were, well, we just have to trust. Mr. Bush to do the right thing. And I said, no, you don't have to trust. He's got a record as governor in the state of Texas. You might take a look at that and see. You might find out who he runs with and what his ideas are. You don't have to just trust. And she said, oh, well, you know, a friend of mine has been in the school systems in a town I won't mention, and she tried to talk to some of the teachers. And the teachers will say, oh, I just don't want to worry about that bad stuff. Now, these are educated women.
And in Germany, they were proud to say, after the war, but I was not political.
Right. Well, these people they need some help. They need to turn on their brain. All right. Capital punishment will be by stoning, hanging, or burning, because this is approved in the Bible. This was capital punishment in the Bible, and Mr. Gary North thinks that stoning is really the best way to go because stones are everywhere and they're cheap, and there's something else that can occur when you do a stoning, and of course even the hangings and burnings will be public executions. But in the stoning, you really get to have audience participation.
Just like a lynch mob.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've had those, of course, in America.
Oh, yes.
And in the stoning, you know, these people get to pick up their own stone and protect their Christian world they've created by stoning to death some people. Listen to this. Those who abandon their faith will be up for stoning. Heresy. Those who commit heresy, blasphemy, witches, or what they want to deem as witchcraft, astrology, adultery, sodomy, incest, striking a parent. You can haul your little old child right out there and have them stoned to death. Incorrigible juvenile delinquency. And for women, if they're not chaste at marriage, if they're unchaste, they can be stoned.
Again, this sounds like the Nazi elimination of.
And women who have abortions and those who aid them or advise them in this this very definitely is an offense for stoning. And this is Gary North. Now, when things get to this level, a lot of people who adhere to some of the Reconstructionist ideas begin to back off and say they aren't Reconstructionists or they won't accept the title. And yet the rest of it they do.
What we're seeing in Israel today, Israeli troops removing Jews by force from the Gaza Strip because that's what the government has told the army needs to be done. So if, with the power of the army behind them, I don't even want to think about it.
No, you really don't. You don't want to see us come to this point. I'd like to talk now about how Bush's agenda is bringing about or helping to bring about the Reconstructionist plan. Mm-hmm. And I think anyone that's conscious and really thinking will have the they already know some of these things are happening. Bush and his administration, and I'll use those interchangeably really because one supports the other, they have a support for the Decalogue's display on public property.
This is the Ten Commandments.
Right. The school prayer and the pulpit politicking. These are attacks on the separation of church and state. Mm-hmm.
But this is a long way from Christian Reconstructionism.
No, because Christian Reconstructionists say that they are not fomenting a revolution, but an evolution. They consider themselves, they said they work like a termite. They get into the system and they chew it from inside out until it collapses. And so what they're doing here is all these little bites they're taking out of the Constitution, all these little bites they're taking out of our civil liberties, what have you, will eventually cause them to cave in. And so that is that's where they're termites, if you will. The Patriot Act's attack on the Constitution is through the impinging upon our civil liberties, due process. You can name, I'm sure, some more areas.
Yeah. And the Patriot Act doesn't even follow the recommendations of the 9/11 Commission. So it's not even a recommendation against terrorism. And the anti-terrorist court, the secret court, got so upset with the Justice Department well before the Patriot Act that they blew the whistle on them, saying, you're bringing us cases for drug dealers and other things that have nothing to do with terrorism, and we don't want to see this stuff.
Right. Well, out of the several hundreds of people they've rounded up, how many have they actually charged with any terrorist acts? I think one.
Yeah.
I think one. The No Child Left Behind Act, you know, the Christian Reconstructionists want to get rid of public schools.
Yeah.
The No Child Left Behind Act is designed to financially weaken the public school system by vouchering children and their public funds out. They stir up these tests stir up the public ire against a quote-unquote failed system, mm-hmm. and they voucher the children into primarily the church schools.
Well, just to let you know, we just got the 5-minute warning, so...
Then we had better move on. All right, faith-based organizations receive public funds. This was not even voted on. This is Bush's I think executive privilege that he put in. His huge tax cuts, tax breaks to the wealthy, and corporations have strapped the government to the point that things like Social Security and our other services are going to have to be dropped, which will make the government smaller. Unfettered capitalism. Do we have a few minutes?
We've got 4 minutes.
Bush removed the U.S. from the Kyoto Protocol because it was going to be a drag on business. Mm-hmm. He refused to acknowledge global warming for the same reason. Clear Skies Act is allowing plants and chemical plants and oil companies and what have you to pollute. CAFTA, that has just now gone into effect or has been signed, it will allow the people to import the goods cheaper because they have cheaper labor. They've exported more American jobs. He's fostered bills to limit the federal courts. They're ruling on from ruling on religious issues, to decrease their funds. We're just, I think, about out of time. Let me just say that the courts, that our Constitution, that are standing between us and this worldview are the ones that these people are attacking the most at this moment. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that stop and think what they're going after. The courts and everything. What will the future hold? I don't know. But as Bush's term draws to a close, I think you better watch very closely, and you will see an advancement in efforts to advance policy and to enact laws that will bring us even closer to this Reconstructionist view.
I know in the case of the courts, I found this the other day, that in American history there were a number of times when the executive branch dealt with the judicial branch by defunding it.
Right. Well,
so
see,
there's
they're trying to do
precedence
that.
for that.
They're trying
to
do that.
You take away their money, they don't have any money to run the court.
Right. Well, and his stand on stem cell research and the right to die with dignity and intelligent design. Mm-hmm. These are all right out of the Reconstructionists' manual.
Then there was Andrew Jackson when he was told he couldn't evict the Indians and start the Trail of Tears by the Chief Justice. He said, well, the Chief Justice has made his decision, now let him enforce it. And he ignored the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So we have precedent for this kind of thing happening in the United States several different times.
Well, I think we're on our way there.
Oh, God. Well, thank you very much, Carol.
Thank you.
It's been a pretty bleak half hour. And this is Hugh Henry for Freethought Forum. Halloween is coming. Halloween may be coming in a different form than we had ever anticipated, from what Carol tells me. The Heritage Foundation, by the way, is a long establishment where Republicans go to hibernate when Republicans aren't in office, and then they empty the Heritage Foundation into the government. And the Brookings Institute is where all the Democrats are sitting and waiting. But, yeah, if these guys are in the Heritage Foundation, they're in the Bush administration.
Oh, very definitely. They supplied him with several hundred bureaucrats to staff his administration.
Well, goodbye. I hope we get back here again.
I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure.
My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure.
My thoughts will not cater
To duke or dictator, no person can deny. Decadence sin fry, no person can deny. Decadence